What is up, everybody? We are back here at King Film Sports for the NFL Week 15 playoff picture analysis and breakdown, as well as my picks for the playoffs. I will be predicting all of the games for the next 4 weeks using the NFL playoff machine and then seeding out the bracket 1 through 7 in each conference here. But first, to break down the action from the last week and how it affected the playoff picture in each respective conference. Start out in the AFC, where the big clash on Sunday night and wild finish with the doink off the upright for the Chiefs clinches the division for them for the 9th consecutive year. It was always inevitable that they were going to win this division, but wrapping it up so early was huge for them, as they have a 4-game lead respectively on the Chargers and the Broncos there, and now sit at 12-1. And with a big loss from Buffalo, who obviously beat them a few weeks ago, they are looking great to secure the number 1 seed. Then at the number 2 spot, you have the Bills, who did clinch the AFC East last week against the Niners with that win, but did end up losing to the Rams, which hurts their number 1 seed hopes a lot. But other than that, they are sitting pretty good there and still occupy the number 2 spot. And then you have the Steelers at the 3, big divisional win against the Browns last week, and now looking good to potentially secure that AFC North if they can finish up strong here, but they do have a very tough schedule. We look at the battle for the number 1 seed here between these 3 teams and their schedules here. Chiefs go on the road to the Browns this week. Then they have a tough game against the Texans maybe, and then at Steelers on Christmas. That one could potentially be huge for the seeding battle, and then potentially in the last week against a Broncos team that is fighting to get into the playoffs, so not technically very easy there. Then the Bills, they have this very tough game at Detroit this week, but then the other games, New England, Jets at home, and then at New England, those are pretty easy after this Lions game. And then the Steelers, who have not wrapped up their division yet, only a 2-game lead against Baltimore, at Philly, then at Baltimore, then that Chiefs game, as we mentioned, on Christmas, and then a Bengals team who potentially could be frisky. We'll see how much they try there in Week 18. So definitely not over yet in the AFC North for the Steelers team, but also considering that Chiefs schedule, if this team can win out, they can definitely get that number 1 seed there. And then at the 4 spot, you have the Texans, who had the bye this last week, sitting at 8-5. They do have a 2-game lead over the Colts, and they did sweep the Colts in the season series, so it would take a catastrophic meltdown for them to lose a division there. But maybe they can get into a top 3 spot if they keep winning games and one of those top 3 ends up losing a couple there. Then in the wildcard spot, you have the Ravens, 8-5, lost a couple weeks ago to the Eagles off the bye this week, and definitely looking to reclaim the AFC North lead to the Steelers. Will need some help there, and obviously to beat Pittsburgh themselves at home. Then you have the Chargers, 8-5, knocked down after that loss to the Chiefs there. Was a pretty good effort, but just could not come up on top in that one. And tied with them, you have the Broncos coming off the bye as well. So all 3 of these wildcard teams sitting at 8-5, Chargers and Broncos just looking to improve their seeding, while the Ravens have actual hopes of a divisional win there if they can supplant the Steelers. And then in the hunt graphic, Colts and the Dolphins here sitting at 6-7. And I think that the path could be viable for both of these teams here, as the schedules for the Chargers and Broncos are not necessarily too easy here. So I think that we could have some drama going forward. Then we look at the NFC here, and at the top we have the Lions, who just keep winning games, 11-game winning streak here at 12-1. But unlike the AFC, they don't have this big divisional lead. No, only 1-game lead over this Vikings team there at 11-2. Then at the number 2 spot, you've got the Eagles, 11-2. They have a big winning streak, I believe 9 games straight at this point. Although they did not look stellar against the Panthers, they got that one done, and only 1 game behind the Lions there. So definitely looking to get the number 1 seed and potentially clinch the division, as they have a 3-game lead over the Commanders at this point. Next, we have the Seahawks at 8-5, and they have a 4-game winning streak brewing after it looked like they were dead going into their bye week. Big win for them against Arizona, and they do have a 1-game lead over the Rams and 2 over San Francisco and Arizona there. So definitely big going forward for them, and they do have a pretty tough schedule going forward, but 2 games straight at home against the Packers and the Vikings, and then I think they wrap it up with a game against the Rams as well in Week 18, so that one will be huge. And then you've got Tampa Bay here, now atop the NFC South, a prodigious collapse from the Falcons here. I think they've lost 4 in a row, and the Bucs have sneakily gotten hot here as they've got Mike Evans back, so now 7-6, pretty easy schedule upcoming for them. Then, as I mentioned, the Vikings at 11-2 here. They obviously got out to that great start at 5-0, then lost a couple to Detroit and LA, but now have won 6 straight and are looking great to not only get this number 5 seed, but if they can keep winning, they could force a division championship scenario against the Lions to win the NFC North and maybe get that number 1 overall seed there in the NFC. So that could be huge for them if they keep up their winning ways there. Darnold looked great against Atlanta. Then at number 6, you've got Green Bay, 9-4 after that loss to Detroit. That was just a crippling loss there by 3 points. Definitely thought that they should have won that game with how injured that Lions defense was, but they end up losing it close. So probably they are out of the division as it stands right now with 2 losses to the Lions and 3 games back. But they could potentially get that number 5 seed if they can track down Minnesota. They've got a game in Minnesota in the weeks to come. And then you've got this Washington team who had a bye this week, sitting at 8-5 there, and a decently easy schedule for them upcoming, so they should be in line for a wildcard spot. And then you look at these in the hunt teams. As I mentioned, Commanders' schedule is pretty easy, so I do not think that many of these teams, if any at all, can really track down a wildcard spot. They're all looking at the division, so you see the 3 NFC North teams. Rams here at 7-6, huge win against the Bills, and then they've got this Week 18 game against Seattle that could be a division championship game. Then the Falcons at 6-7, Kirk Cousins playing horrible football at the moment, and 4-game losing streak for them there, but they do have the tiebreaker after sweeping the season series with Tampa Bay, so that's really all that's keeping them in it here. Definitely looking worse than it did. Then you have Arizona, who are on a 3-game losing streak themselves here, just 2 brutal losses to Seattle and a big blown lead at Minnesota there. So they're all but done for their playoff hopes. They probably have to win out and get a lot of help there. And then the Niners, they do get a big win over Chicago, but dealt a massive blow by that Seattle win in Arizona there, so will be very tough for them to make the playoffs. So now let's get into my predictions for the rest of the season. We will go week by week here, and I will give you all of the matchups and how they affect the playoff picture. So we started out with week 15 here, and I've got in the AFC, Chiefs stay atop the conference at 13-1. I have them winning in Cleveland. Then the Bills, I have them in a slight upset in Detroit. I think that the injuries will catch up to this Lions team. Bills on the bounce back, get that win. So they go to 11-3 there and keep hold of this number 2 seed. Then at the number 3 spot, I have the Steelers, but they lose the Keystone State battle to Philadelphia against a tough Eagles team there. So drop to 10-4 and now only have a 1-game lead by virtue of the Ravens win against the New York Giants. Then at the number 4 spot, we've got the Texans. I have them winning against the Dolphins, all but assuring that they win their division there. Then at the number 6 spot, you've got the Chargers. I have them beating the Tampa Bay Buccaneers at home, although that will be a very close game there. So they go to 9-5. And then a big game where Broncos are in a quasi-clinching scenario against Indianapolis at home. Both teams coming off of the bye. I have the Colts winning this one in a bit of an upset there just to add some drama here. I also think that the Colts match up favorably in that one to get the victory. So now the Broncos would only have a 1-game lead and would be losing the tiebreaker to that Colts team. So that is a big swing game in that one. Then we go to the NFC where you have the Lions at 12-2 after that loss to Buffalo that I mentioned earlier. And they are tied with the Eagles, but Eagles at the 2 spot after their big win against the Steelers. And then at the 3 spot, I have Seattle dropping this game to the Packers at home on Sunday Night Football, but they stay atop the NFC West for now. And then at the 4th spot, we have the Falcons reclaiming the division lead. I think they win against Desmond Ridder and the Raiders on Monday night. And I think that the Tampa Bay Buccaneers lose a close one to the Chargers, as I mentioned earlier. Then in the other Monday night game, I have the Vikings winning that one. So now they are tied with the Lions atop the NFC North there at 12-2, but still sitting at the 5 seed. Packers, as I mentioned, beating Seattle, going to 10-4. And then I have Washington winning in New Orleans to go to 9-5 there. Then we go to the next week, week 16, and we've got some great games to start off that week. You look at these games, Chiefs-Texans, I have the Chiefs winning that one at home there, so that improves them to 14-1. And then the Bills, pretty easy game against the Patriots, got them going to 12-3. Steelers, tough game in Baltimore. I have them losing that one, now down to 10-5. So next 2 weeks, I think 2 Steelers losses and 2 Ravens wins, but they are still atop of the division there. And then at the 4 spot, Texans losing, but they are still atop the AFC South there at 9-6. Then at the 6th line, I've got the Broncos winning in LA against this Chargers team. Maybe a bit controversial, but I just think that this Broncos team will be able to bounce back from that Colts loss, kind of split the difference there for that Chargers team after they beat Tampa Bay this week. So that would put the Broncos at 9-6 at the 6th seed and the Chargers at 9-6 as the 7th seed. And I do also have the Colts beating the Titans at home, so that would improve them to 8-7 on the outside there. Then in the NFC, I have the Lions at 13-2. I've got them winning in Chicago. And then the Eagles, I have them actually losing in Washington here. I just think that they're due for a loss at this point. And Washington will be a frisky contender at home in a divisional battle there. I just think they get that one done very close. And then Seattle, I can't predict them to lose both their next 2 games at home to NFC North foes. So I do think that they beat Minnesota. I just think that the Vikings are flying a little too close to the sun here, a bit fraudulent at that gaudy record. And then the Falcons, they stay atop the NFC South, in my opinion, with a win against the New York Giants. But Tampa Bay does keep pace with a win in Dallas there, so they're both tied, but the Falcons have the tiebreaker there. As I mentioned, you've got the Vikings losing in Seattle, and then the Packers win against New Orleans there, but still at the 6th seed, and Washington beats the Eagles at home there. And then some other NFC West games that matter. I've got the Niners winning in Miami there. That will be very close. And then the Rams winning in New York against the Jets. Those those games going to the East Coast will not necessarily be easy, even if the teams that they're facing are not currently in playoff position. So definitely worthy to monitor those games. And then also the Cardinals going to Carolina there. So we'll monitor the NFC West storylines going into that week. But I do think all of those teams end up winning there. Then we go to week 17 here, and the Chiefs finally lose a game here on Christmas Day to this Pittsburgh Steelers team. Can't have the Steelers losing all of these games, so I do think this is a good bounce back spot. And I do not think that the Chiefs will necessarily win out this regular season and finish 16-1. So I think that a loss finds them there in Pittsburgh. And then I've got the Ravens winning in Houston. Just think of the better team there. I've got the Bills winning against the Jets at home. So they are only one game back heading into the final week of this Chiefs team looking for that 1 seed. And the Steelers stay atop the AFC North for the time being at 11-5 there. And then the Texans with a loss 9-7, and all of a sudden the Colts could be alive for the division. I mentioned that it was a long shot. I have had the Texans losing some games in this scenario and the Colts winning a lot, including a win in New York against the Giants. So that puts them into the 7th seed there. And then the Chargers, I have them winning in New England, which puts them back into the 6th seed. And the Broncos end up falling out as I have them losing at Cincinnati there. Believe it or not, even how bad this team has performed in the Bengals this season, I think that the Bengals will be favored in that game, and I think they end up winning that one. So the AFC, very scrunched heading into the final week. Then we look at the NFC, the Lions, Monday night matchup against the Niners. I do have them winning that one, although I think that will be a very interesting game. We'll see how the Niners injury situation looks, and the Lions defense for that matter as well. Then you have the Eagles at 13-3. I think they beat the Cowboys on their home turf in that one. And then the Bucks finally supplant the Falcons as the Falcons lose in Washington and the Bucks beat the Panthers at home. We'll see how those games go, as this Panthers team is looking awfully frisky right now. And the Bucks actually surge to the number 3 seed as Seattle loses in Chicago there. I think that's a tough game for them, tough environment at the end of December. And then the Rams actually go to the 4 spot after they end up beating the Cardinals at home there, essentially ending the Cardinals season in that one. And then at the 5 spot, I think that the Vikings will beat the Packers there, although that one will be very close. So the Vikings will be 13-3, and then the Packers fall to the number 7 spot in that one. And then we head to week 18. These are my final predictions as it stands right now. We started out in the AFC. I've got the Chiefs securing a number 1 seed, although it will not be easy there going against a Broncos team that needs to win to get into the playoffs. But I do think that the Chiefs will get it done in that one. Even if it's just scraping by, they know how to win these close games. Then the Bills finish at 14-3 with a win against the Patriots there. And then I have the Steelers winning the AFC North with a win against Cincinnati, but we will have to monitor how much the Bengals are trying in these games because they can play big spoiler. As I mentioned in week 17, I have them beating the Broncos. I definitely think they are alive to beat this Steelers team in that game, but we'll see how their injuries look and how much they are trying in that game. Then the Texans, I have them winning in Tennessee to secure the AFC South in that one, although it's probably much tougher in this scenario than it will be in real life for them to secure the division there. Then at the 5 seed, I have the Baltimore Ravens beating Cleveland, getting revenge for earlier this season. And in this scenario, I do have the Ravens winning out in their last 4 games. And then the Chargers, I have them going 11-6. I think they beat the Raiders in this final week. And then the Colts, I think they beat the Jags there in this matchup. So the Broncos end up falling out of the playoffs. So that just underscores how huge this game is this week between the Colts and the Broncos in that one. You see what devastation can occur if the Broncos lose that matchup. Then in the NFC, we have a potential NFC North division championship game between the Lions and the Vikings. I think the Lions win that one on their home field, get the number 1 seed there. Then at the number 2 spot, I've got the Eagles winning an easy game against the Giants. And then the 3 seed, I have the Buccaneers securing the NFC South crown with a win against New Orleans on their home field. And then a division championship game in the NFC West between the Rams and the Seahawks. I've got the Rams winning that one, going to 10-7 there. And then at the 5 seed, as I mentioned, Vikings 13-4. 6 seed, I have Washington winning against the Cowboys 12-5. And then the Packers, I have them beating the Bears, going to 12-5 as well. So very strong field in that NFC there. Probably a couple more upsets will occur than I predicted within this scenario. We'll see if the Lions can stay atop the NFC and the Chiefs in the AFC. Let me know what you guys think of my predictions in the comments down below. What do you think of the current playoff picture? As always, be sure to like and subscribe, and I'll see you all in the next one.